Well, welcome back, Watch people. Now, I'm sorry this is another video in the car, but I've had a bit of a week from hell this week. I've had my youngest daughter's been in hospital. She's not been well. I've had a virus myself. None of us have been particularly great in the Thorpe household. So apologies for the quality and quantity of my videos this week. It's not been as good as it normally is, but just telling you, that's the reason why. Thank goodness we're all we're all pulling round and things are looking up. So let's get into the video. I uploaded a video or a podcast with myself talking to Katia Hills from the Watch Register earlier on. If you haven't listened to that, pop over and have a listen. It was a good interview, I think, which gave you an outline of what the Watch Register actually do. This is not a paid review, by the way. I have no association or financial interest in the Watch Register whatsoever. I need to make that absolutely clear. The point of the matter is this, is that Katia gave a great interview and she was far too polite and diplomatic to say what I want to say and what I'm going to say. And what I'm going to say is this: shame on all the watch manufacturers who have refused to share their lost and stolen lists. They are deliberately withholding lost and stolen information from the general public. They're keeping it to themselves. They are using it exclusively for themselves, for their own benefit, and they are doing nothing to help halt the level of crime, not only in the UK but across the world. Stolen watches. They're doing nothing to assist the police, and they're doing nothing to assist the general public to avoid buying a watch that's on a lost and stolen register somewhere, wherever that may be. Now, what we need is that we need a combined system here, don't we? We need a system, a lost and stolen register that encompasses every lost and stolen register or watch register in the world. And whilst Katia tells us that they have over 70,000 stolen watches on their register, you can only imagine and you can only wonder and you can only guess as to how big that list will be potentially if it was shared with companies like Rolex, like Audemars Piguet, like Patek Philippe. If these companies would share that information in the interest of the watch buying public, and that's what it's all about. It's in the interest of the watch buying public. Okay, I guess the Watch Register would benefit from it, but look, at the end of the day, they work very hard. The logistics of what they're doing is immense. It's immensely a difficult system to run. And don't forget, they're not just running a system that tells you if your watch was lost and stolen. They're working with the police and the authorities and the insurance companies thereafter to try and retrieve people's stolen watches. Meanwhile, we've got companies that have ceased access to their lost and stolen register. Ceased it to the general public. Why? What for? Well, you know my views on that, guys, because I've done a separate video on the whole thing. I wrote an article that was very popular, was shared around the world via LinkedIn. I've done that 2 or 3 years ago. Everyone knows my views on why Rolex themselves stopped access to their lost and stolen register, and it wasn't for the public good, believe me, guys. It wasn't in anyone's interest other than the bad guys and Rolex themselves, you have to say. But I'm not digging them out. There are other companies as well that are just as bad, just as culpable, in my opinion, for not sharing these lost and stolen lists. And they need to be shared. They must be shared, because we have an epidemic worldwide of watch crime, watch theft. And the only way that we can battle this together, look, I can make as many YouTube videos as we want. I can try and, talk to as many scammers as I like. I'm not going to make any difference, guys. I'm not going to make any difference at all. The only difference that watch channels can make and the watch community can make, and this is why I think instead of different watch channels having little digs at each other, we all have the same interests at heart at the end of the day. We should actually stick together What we need is a united watch community, not a divided one. Because if we unite as a watch community, then we might be able to get some power as a group and start demanding. Not asking, we can start demanding that some of these things take place. This is why I made the video about don't buy your watch from certain authorised dealerships, because they're keeping the cards and they're taking the stickers off. Obviously, if you get the chance to buy the watch that you've been waiting for, buy it. But once you've bought it and it's yours and you're walking out the door, say, by the way, I'll never be back. Let them know that you're not happy, because, you know, there's an old saying, united we stand, divided we fall, and that is never truer than in the watch business and what we face today. Not just with the silly stuff about the warranty cards, but more importantly about the theft and the crime. If we don't stick together, we won't get anywhere. Now, I've got a couple of things that I want to go through, emails that have come through. Really interestingly, I've had 2 emails this week that have particularly taken my eye. One from a gentleman in Australia who has seen a email directive from Rolex in Geneva, asking or informing their authorised dealer that they should be removing seals and keeping warranty cards. Now, Rolex have previously told us that this is not a directive from HQ. This is something that the dealerships themselves are making individual decisions upon. Now, if this email is true, and I have no reason to doubt its credibility or to doubt its provenance, then it's proven to be a lie, hasn't it? Because if Rolex are telling their authorised dealers to do this, that is a clear directive from HQ, which means that all the dealers in the UK, for example, who seem to be well up for it and ahead of the game, maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe it is a directive from upstairs. It would be nice for us to know either way, wouldn't it? One way or another. You know, someone's got something to hide, haven't they? Either the authorised dealerships are responsible or Rolex themselves are responsible, and it would be nice if one of them would hold their hands up. Now, perhaps even more concerning is an email that I received from the United States, from California in fact. Again, I'm absolutely, completely satisfied with the provenance and the source of this email. I've had a number of communications with the person that sent it to me, who works in an authorised dealership in California. Now, he tells me that he has 100 to 200,000 pound clients, dollars I should say, 100 to 200,000 dollar clients that he's been serving, in the hope that they're going to get on the list for, they're going to finally get their order fulfilled for a Patek or a stainless steel Rolex. And now he tells me that his store turns over around 5 million a year on Rolex alone, and about 20 million a year in general. But he also tells me, more concerningly, that every single Rolex sports watch in stainless steel that comes through the front door, every single stainless steel Patek that comes through the front door, goes in and out the back door to a Chinese agent, and none of these watches are finding their way and fulfilling the waiting list. Now, if that's true, and again, I have absolutely no reason to dispute the provenance that's been given to me, if that's true, that's outrageous. And we talk about grey market dealers, lads. I mean, come on, you know, I took a bit of stick for the video that I made about my true definition of a grey market dealer, and maybe it was a bit naive in one or two areas, but that's great. That's my definition of a grey market dealer. Never mind the fact that they've got authorised dealer status yet. If that is true, and they are moving those watches in the front door, out the back door, which, look, I know happens anyway, but this is definitive proof. This is being sent to me by people who actually work in the authorised dealerships themselves. It doesn't really get any better than that. I mean, it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. But look, it's business. You know, do I blame the owners? Well, you know what? The businessman in me says, why should they sell a stainless steel Daytona for $9.5 grand when they can get double that money for it? I'm talking UK pounds, of course. I don't know what it is in dollars off the top of my head, but you get where I'm coming from. Now, we all know this is going on, but this is kind of, as I say, this is kind of proof. And at the end of the day, guys, don't talk to me about how bad grey market dealers are when you've got authorised dealers doing things like that. To me, it's far, far worse. Now, a quick question that I wanted to answer, because it's an interesting one and it leads into a little story that I've actually got for you. One of our contributors, Bill, wrote in and asked me, does a recession affect the watch business? And Bill says quite rightly that a lot of wealthy people actually put their money into gold during times of recession, and fine objects and watches in particular. It's an interesting question, Bill, and it leads into a little story as well. You're absolutely right. People do, wealthy people at least, do tend to spend more, I feel, during a recession, whether it's a psychological thing, whether they feel it cheers them up in times of recession. But look, let's be frank, it might not be very palatable to listen to for people that have suffered in a recession, but most of the wealthy people out there are not affected whatsoever by a recession. In fact, in the watch business, if I'm honest with you, watch dealers will tell you that recessions are a great time to buy, because there's obviously an increased number of people out there that need to sell, and again, if you know, being brutally frank, a lot of watch dealers will look at that as a period where they can maybe take advantage of a recession and buying cheaply. Meanwhile, the people that have still got the money are still paying the price. They're still paying the full money for their watches. They're not asking for an extra discount because there's a so-called recession on. They don't really feel it, so they don't actually understand it. And I thought that was a good question from Bill. And talking about gold leads me into a little story for you. I know you like a story, but how about this for a missed opportunity? I can't remember the year off the top of my head, but it must have been around about 2006, 2007 maybe. A guy came up to me at a show one day and he said to me, do you buy gold? And I said, well, potentially, it depends on what you've got and what sort of format it's in. And he said, well, it's in the shape of coins, gold Krugerrands, full Krugerrands. And I said, yeah, that'd be of interest to me, because, you know I can buy them and keep them for a while and maybe make a few pounds on them here and there. And he said, well, I've got quite a lot actually. I said, okay, you know, I can buy a few. What have you got? He said, well, I've got 1,000. And I went, whoa, hold on a minute, 1,000. Wow. I said, what are you looking for each coin? And he said, well, I need spot price for them. Now, spot price is like the gold price, the value of the actual gold in the coin. And at the time, I remember very well, it was £330 per coin. £330 per coin, which meant, of course, that I would have been laying out £330,000 to buy his entire gold Krugerrand collection. Now, I wasn't in the mood to lay out £330,000 for basically £330,000 for gold. So I turned the opportunity down. Then we experienced the gold rush. And when I talk about the gold rush, I'm talking about the time where scrap gold, the price of gold went absolutely berserk right across the world. Friends of mine in the business were buying coaches and converting them into mobile cash for gold buses and traveling around the country, setting up anywhere where they could stop. And one guy in particular that I knew in the business was turning over £1 million a week in scrap gold. Now, at the height of the gold rush, the gold price hike, those Krugerrands went up to, I think, around £1,200 or £1,250 each, which means that had I laid out that £330,000 to invest in those coins, I would have turned that into a £1.25 million collection in the space of, I think, about a couple of years. I missed out, but you know, I don't blame myself for that, because no one foresaw that gold price rush coming. And I remember when it did, and we was watching the price of, you know, gold going up and up and up, and every week we were saying, you know, it's got to stop soon, it's got to stop soon, but it just didn't. For a very long time, it just kept on and on and on and on, increasing in value. And I tell you what, I mean, I think the world must have eaten up 3/4 of its scrap reserves, if you like. I don't think there's many people left these days with much scrap gold, because they've sold it. It just went straight into melt, and you know, there was millions and millions of gold coins and scrap jewelry melted during that period, because of the sheer value of scrap gold. Now lastly for this video, because I've been sent out on an errand, and if I don't get back I'm going to get in trouble. Lastly for this video, I've got a little funny story for you. I woke up this morning to about 8 emails, people saying, Paul, I've seen someone flashing off a Audemars Piguet 1 Pablo Montoya limited edition watch. This is basically the watch that was stolen from me in a robbery back in 2014. There's not many of them around, but it's not a piece unique, you understand, it's a limited edition. So I woke up this morning to quite a number of emails saying there's a guy on YouTube flashing that he's just bought this 1 Pablo Montoya Audemars Piguet, have a look, see if it's yours, etc, etc. So I've gone over to have a look at this video, and it's producer Michael, one of my favourite YouTubers. I love Michael because he's older than me, and he wears fancy clothes, and he does all the things that an older guy should do, enjoys his life. Guys, listen, producer Michael is not wearing my watch. He's wearing a watch that is identical to the one that's stolen, and I really appreciate all your due diligence and for you guys keeping your eye out. But the watch that he's wearing, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, is definitely not the one that was stolen from me. But thanks for pointing it out anyway. But I had to chuckle, to be honest, when I saw who was wearing this watch. Michael, mate, if you watch this video, you are behind the times. You're about 5 years too late with that watch. I was wearing one 5 or 6 years ago. But there you go. It is a lovely piece, and I'm sure that he'll enjoy wearing it. I just hope he has better luck with his than I have on mine. So that's it for this little update. As I said right at the very beginning of the video, please forgive me this week for the quality and the quantity of the videos being a little bit lower than they normally are. Hopefully my household will be back to normal by the end of the week, and then we can all get back to normal. Thanks for watching, and I will speak to you again soon.